All right, welcome, welcome. We are so excited today. Today we are celebrating our 25,000th subscriber. Thank you so much for being with us.
We want to thank all of you who've watched our videos, commented, emailed us, bought our guides, shared your trip experiences with us, met us in person, believed in us, trusted in us to help you out with your vacations. Truly, we're very, very thankful to all of you for helping make this happen.
All right, and so we thought to celebrate, we'd give you guys a chance to ask us some questions, do maybe an up close and personal, let you know what life is like and a little bit about us. Okay, so we started our channel about 2 years ago in July of 2020. I cannot believe it. I was just thinking about September of 2020. We went on a trip to Grand Teton and we told our children we could not come home until we had 100 subscribers. And we got our 100th subscriber as we pulled in the driveway. It seemed impossible, but it happened, and that's because of you, so thank you so much.
Just to give you a little insight into what we've done in the last 2 years, we've created 230 videos, we've written 80 blog articles, we've written 15 travel guides to different places in the West. In those travel guides are included audio guides that I have created and recorded myself. Those audio guides contain chapters that are about 15 to 20 minutes long each. And I've created how many? 72 audio guide chapters.
It's about 20 hours of stories about our national parks. They are incredible.
And our channel has received over 3.5 million views in 2 years. So wow, we can't believe it. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun to meet a lot of you. So.
Okay, so we wanted to tell you just a little bit about us, and then we're going to answer your questions. So Matt and I both were born and raised in Utah. Our families that we grew up in are real similar to each other. Both of us are from 3 children families that went girl, boy, girl. I'm the oldest child, and Matt is the middle child.
We met at Weber State University in a history class. I spotted Cheryl as she walked into class, and I asked the professor who she was, and he spent the rest of the semester trying to get us together. And we went out on a date the last night of class, and so our professor really played a big role. Shout out to Dr. Gene Sessions for helping us get together, and he's kind of bragged about that to all of his classes since in the last 20 years. So Weber State is real special to us.
And Matt was a history major, and I was a history teaching major. But then we both went on and got master's degrees. Matt got his in history, and I got mine in severe special education. That's always been a passion of mine. And that's what I've been doing the last 23 years, is being a special educator, lots of different resource, severe. Right now I teach adults with severe disabilities. It's pretty fun.
I was looking at becoming a history professor, but I kind of bailed on that and got a job with the federal government in the Social Security Administration, and I helped people retire and file for Medicare. Along the way, we had 4 children. We've got 3 boys and a girl, and just so blessed to have some really fun, wonderful children. At some point, I ended up teaching adjunct history classes for Weber State University, the university that means so much to me. And that was really fun, but COVID kind of killed that, so I don't do that anymore. So 2 years ago, we started this channel with the goal of me quitting my job and doing something different. I wanted to do something I was really passionate about. And I enjoyed helping people with Social Security and all that, but I wanted to help people travel. I wanted to share places that are really special and the stories that I really enjoy as a historian with people. And so we started this channel with that goal in mind. We were so blessed. Again, very, very blessed. Within a year, had enough income from the channel that I could quit my job and focus on this full time. And trust me, there was a lot of people that thought I was pretty crazy quitting my secure government job to become a YouTuber. How strange is that?
But I think this is something Matt was born to do. He has always been into editing our family videos. He is quite a historian. Anytime I have a question, I'm like, hey, do you know about this? And he always does. He loves to research, loves the stories, and he's an amazing travel planner. I always feel so lucky that I get to tag along with him on his adventures.
So I wanted to give you just a small peek into kind of what our daily life is like, or what my daily life is like as a YouTuber. So Cheryl's still teaching full time, but she does help me out when she can. But now that this is my full-time job, typically I have a goal now to travel once a month to try to go to a new area or revisit an area so that I can have that information to put in our guides and update them and help you travel. And then I make at least one video per week, sometimes two. That's to kind of keep the YouTube algorithm happy and to keep getting more fresh information out there. And then I have a goal to write 1 or 2 blog posts per week for our website. And then a lot of the rest of the time is made up of writing the travel guides or updating them, writing the audio guides and recording them. So I spend most of my time at the computer, honestly, a lot. Most of my day I'm writing at the computer. I do a lot of responding to emails, consultations, just a wide variety of things. In fact,
this is a legitimate 40-hour-a-week job. It is hard work, and Matt puts in the time.
Yeah, I'm sure I work more than I used to at my old job, but it's fun and it doesn't feel like work. Of course, it's a lot of fun. I guess I'm kind of hardwired for this. We recently hired an assistant to help us out. So one of our goals is to respond to every email and every comment we get on YouTube, and we have hired an assistant to kind of help us out with that a little bit because it really does mean a lot to us. And so she's been great. She's a friend of ours, longtime friend of ours. She works a little part-time job for us, and so that's been fantastic. Becca, shout out to Becca here for that.
Yes, and really it's just we wanted her to be able to help with like technical support if anyone had a hard time downloading a guide or an audio guide or just anything like that. We wanted to make sure we were taking good care of anyone who reached out to us if we weren't personally able to answer questions. But we still read all the comments, all the emails.
Still read them all. Yes, definitely, and respond to a lot of them myself. Small peek into making a travel guide. It probably takes us, so we just made a travel guide for Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills, and that is like a 4 to 7 day itinerary basically, and I think it took me about 2 months to make that guide between like coming up with the concepts for how your days would be structured, writing it all out, editing, doing all of the formatting. We edit over and over and over. I mean, how many times did we edit that thing?
So many.
And then writing the audio guide. So the audio guide, I think I have 12 chapters on that one. And again, I do all the research and the writing and the recording all on my own. So I might have read 15 or 20 books about the Black Hills before or in the process of writing that, and then have to write it out, edit it. So anyway, that was a good 2 month hardcore, just focusing on that. So that means a lot to us. That's kind of our baby there, is helping you travel. So,
all right. So, time for questions. All right. Our first one comes from Alexis Taylor, and she asks, outside of travel, what are your favorite hobbies and things to do? I love to dance. I have taught dance fitness the last 12 years, and I especially love teaching it to my students with severe disabilities. That is a party. A big group of people with no inhibitions, and we have a great time. And this last year, I recently learned how to clog. My mom wanted to take a clogging class, so now I'm a clogger with her. I also like to grow berries in my yard and go hiking.
Mm-hmm. My passion is sports, so I've played baseball my whole life. In fact, this is the first year I haven't played fast pitch baseball. I just aged out a little bit. I've been playing with a bunch of young guys for quite a while. I'm 44 though now, and I think I'm retired from fast pitch baseball. But we still play slow pitch softball. We have a group of friends that we've been playing together for over 20 years as a softball team. And so we play 2 seasons per year. So we've played over 40 seasons together as a softball team, and we do a monthly date night together. And let me tell you, we do some fun date nights. We're very creative about what we do.
Oh, and actually we have it's not like a big channel, but we do put it on. We do put our activities on there. You should check them out if you need date night ideas. We do some fun stuff.
Yeah, I have a little YouTube channel and Instagram page for our group, our softball team.
Yeah, I guess if you really want to know us personally, you could look at the
He Hate Me is the name of our softball team, and yeah, so He Hate Me on Instagram and YouTube and all that. Anyway, so hanging out with our friends is a big thing. And then, of course, just spending time with our kids. I now just love, our kids are getting older, and it's just so fun to participate in their activities. That's my favorite thing. So, Bridget Stokes asks, have you ever had a bad experience while traveling? Well, of course. We've had plenty of bad experiences while traveling. So, Cheryl's got one that she is dying to tell you about.
Well, we always talk about how much we love Yellowstone, and we do. We go to it every single year, sometimes more than once a year. But we've had 2 epically terrible trips to Yellowstone. Mm-hmm. One was when our children were babies. I mean, now thinking hindsight, I'm like, why did we even attempt this trip?
Yeah.
But we had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old son at the time, and we were camping in a tent because that's what we could afford to do. And our 1-year-old, he would not go to sleep. He would not. And he cried and cried. And no one has a cry like this kid did. We called him the pterodactyl. It was just this horrible shriek. And it went on for an hour. And I know we kept the whole campsite up. And we finally got him to calm down, got him to go to sleep. And like 3 minutes later, the flashlight was on our tent, and we had a ranger at our door to check on the well-being of our child because one of our fellow campers thought that there'd been an abandoned baby in the tent. And of course, it woke our son up and started the whole process over again. And then my brother was on that trip with us, as well as both sets of our parents. And my brother also had 2 daughters that were 2 and 0, a little baby. And we wanted to go to the Old Faithful Lodge. And as we were walking up, his oldest daughter had the biggest tantrum. Even now, we call it the tantrum of the Yellowstone, where she flopped, she was laying on the ground, rolling around, and several international tourists gathered around to take photos because they'd never seen a tantrum like that. And of course, I think Matt and I had to handle this because her parents were trying to change a blowout that their other daughter had had.
I was taking pictures.
And Matt was taking pictures. I was not sure what to do. But that Matt's dad calls that trip we drove around in a van together, and his dad called it the Ball-mobile. There was a lot of crying on that trip.
So one of the things we've done a lot is travel with our family. So both my parents and Cheryl's parents will travel together. We've traveled with Cheryl's parents, her brother and her sister, and their families, and they all have 4 kids just like us. Big groups of just traveling around together, which means you end up getting a lot of drama.
Yeah.
A lot of craziness happens with all those kids on the trip. So,
and we also had another Yellowstone trip where this was years later. The first year we had our trailer was probably 5 years ago, and I got so gung-ho. I made our family go on trips back to back to back, and Matt told me, he's like, this isn't a good idea. The kids need a break. But of course, I'm like, no, they don't. They'll love it. So we drove to Yellowstone. We couldn't figure out our trailer, so our fridge wasn't working, our power wasn't working, and then our kids were just miserable because they just wanted to be home. And so we actually just turned the car around and went home.
We bailed on our trip early. We actually
Yes.
did the whole parent thing where you go home. We're going to turn this car around.
Yep.
We did that.
Yep.
Bridget also asks, is there a place we would never want to visit again? And we agreed that Four Corners is a place we have no desire to return to.
We were visiting Mesa Verde, which is close to the Four Corners. And those of you that aren't from the West or don't know, that's where Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico meet. And I really wanted to see this. It was a bucket list item. And I brought up the idea to the crew, and Matt's parents were with us. And Matt's mom is always game for any adventure. And I said, let's go to the Four Corners. She's like, well, that's an activity. And I should have known that was Linda E's for, that's a terrible idea. But that's like as negative as she gets. So we went to the Four Corners, and legit, that's all it is, a cement slab with 4 corners. It was, I guess in my mind, I thought it was going to be some big party, but it's not. And so We've got the picture, we've been there, done that, and probably won't go there again.
Nope. Although Las Vegas is a close second. I think Cheryl could do without Las Vegas again. I kind of like going there about once a year, once every other year, something like that. But Las Vegas is a place that Cheryl doesn't like. Also, Bridget asks if we plan on traveling more to the east and do a video on the Smoky Mountains. So our goal is to cover the west, but we do travel outside of the west, of course. And so we just went to Europe and we made some videos there. If we go to the Smokies, we'll make videos on it, but maybe not like a ton of travel advice, because we try to do the stuff that we know well and that we can give you really good advice on. So we actually had a trip planned to the Smokies and COVID canceled it. So next question is, Alicia Salisbury asks, how do you decide where to go next? So that gets back to my mission here, is that my mission is to cover the Rocky Mountains. I want to help you travel to the Rockies. And I love the Rockies. I really, truly, we spent a summer in Missoula as a job assignment about 10 years ago. And during that summer, I drove all over Montana, Idaho, Colorado, and Utah, and just fell in love with the West. I really do love it. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is share with you. So I just go to the places I haven't been, really. But also I am learning from you what you're interested in. So I didn't know exactly how outsiders traveled to some of these national parks and traveled through the Rockies and all that. But I'm learning. The more and more I talk to you, the more I'm learning. And so I'm like, okay, I need to go visit that place so that I know what I can tell you about it. Cody, Wyoming was one of those. We hadn't been there. And so we went there. The Wind Rivers, another place.
Beartooth Highway. We're going to
Beartooth Highway.
Bozeman pretty soon because people fly into Bozeman to go visit Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying to, we've been to these places several times, but every time we go to these places, like Yellowstone is big.
Mm-hmm.
And so we haven't done everything in Yellowstone, but every time we go, we try to do something new.
Yep. So I want to build the best channel out
Yeah.
there for covering the Rocky Mountains. And then when I feel like I have that, we'll probably start expanding out a little bit more. We'll see. We'll see on that, I guess. Alicia also asked if we've been to Washington State, and I haven't been there. Cheryl has. That's definitely on my bucket list to go there. Whether we'll really make it a focus on our channel or not, again, we'll only do that if we feel like we really have something to offer out there for you.
But definitely a worthy destination to go to. The Portland, Washington area, just gorgeous.
Another question from Alicia. Alicia asked a very good question about what we think about the reservation systems that are being implemented in many of the national parks, which is they're getting too many visitors, basically, more than they can handle. And so they're trying to limit that or restrict it by making you get a reservation beforehand, like a timed entry reservation. And something certainly needs to happen. So this is good that they're doing something. And the reservation system means at least that you've got a spot there that day and you're not going to be hopefully waiting in line for 5 hours
And
or get turned away at the entry.
And preserving the park for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is a tough balancing act. We try not to be, we like to go off of the Teddy Roosevelt talk, in the arena. If you haven't ever listened to that quote, you should. It's really good. But he talks about that if you're in the arena taking the punches, don't criticize them. They're in there, they're trying to figure it out. They love the parks just like we do, and they're just trying to balance preserving the park with the thousands of millions of people that want to visit them. And so, yes, it's awkward, it's difficult, but they're figuring it out, and it's necessary.
Now, Yellowstone recently reopened after the floods. They reopened the Southern Loop, and they're doing it on a license plate situation where if your license plate ends in an even number, you can come in on the even days, odd number on the odd days. So this is a way to kind of slice the traffic in half. I think I like this idea better than the reservation idea. I haven't thought through every aspect, and I'm going to go experience it myself here in a few days. But I think I kind of like that a little bit better than the reservation idea. One of the things about the reservation idea is you have to get online like 6 months in advance, and sometimes you have to get your lodging before you can even get the reservation, before you even know you have a reservation, and it's really competitive to get online and click the buttons and all that stuff. I kind of like the idea of, hey, at least if you're based on your license plate, you know that if you go there, you're going to be able to get in on those days that your license plate matches up. So those are some ideas, and certainly it's good to really be thinking about the future.
But that's one thing we've loved about our new job is that we donate 5% of every guide we sell to the national park that it was for, and it's been cool to be able to write those checks and know that we're doing something to help these parks. I love that.
Yeah, and I'll just bring up one more thing. If the national parks are so crowded that the experience is so bad, perhaps it'll help you realize that there are so many other amazing things in the West around these national parks. You think they're just kind of the tip of the iceberg, really. There's amazing stuff all around the national parks, and hopefully we can kind of help you realize what those are and help you travel to those places so that if you do go to Yellowstone, for example, you could spend those odd days out doing these other amazing things around Hebgen Lake and, West Yellowstone or whatever, Cody, and then you spend some of that time in the park. But good to realize that there's way more out there than just the national parks, including some amazing state parks. So.
All right. Woodworking by AWV said, have you ever had arguments about travel, or do you have any tips on how to overcome those arguments?
So Cheryl has an object lesson here. Yes, the answer is yes. We have plenty of arguments. Yes. Travel, one of the things about travel, this is what I love. Travel brings a family together, in part because it forces you to live together for a while in close quarters, and there's bound to be arguments and tension and all that stuff. And And that's actually probably good. You know, it builds the memories and it helps you kind of work through some of those things. So I think that's good. But certainly, we've had plenty of arguments.
This right here was the subject of one of our biggest fights ever. Last summer, we were going to Mount Rushmore, Black Hills, Teddy Roosevelt, and Yellowstone, this huge road trip. It was 13 or 14 days. And we were hoteling it because we were switching locations so much we didn't want to take our trailer. And so we had to pack all of our stuff for 2 weeks into our Sequoia, which is, we bought this car because it has great leg room for our man children that are like 6 feet tall now, but there's not very much luggage space in it. And so we were filled to the brim with our stuff. And Matt told me that I could not bring my water jug. And I completely lost my mind. I cried for half an hour as we're driving out of the driveway, and not just like little tears, like sobbing. And my kids were all concerned. Matt didn't know what the big deal over the water bottle was, but
So that would be our tip, because I think you asked how do we overcome it. We have a little saying that we use. I say, let's hit the reset button, because sometimes you kind of go down the rabbit hole before you even know what you're arguing about. And I say, let's hit the reset button. Let's start over again. And so then we tend to start over and try to understand each other's point of view. That's helped us to understand.
And that one boiled down to, it's really important to me to have access to water, and on vacations, you don't always know when you can fill up. And I want to make sure my children aren't thirsty. And Matt doesn't think as much about food. He didn't understand that this was such a big deal to me. So, it happens to the best of us. We all have our little spats.
We just spent 2.5 weeks in Europe, and I had one meltdown on the trip, and I said, that's a success. Only one meltdown. That's pretty good.
I would say so. That was leading 20 people around Europe. So
trips can be stressful, but worth it, obviously. We love vacationing. So, so Liz Allison asked, Liz from the UK, thank you. Liz has long followed us. Appreciate it. How long does it take to plan a trip, and do you both research the places you are going? So typically, I would say it probably takes about a third to half of the time as the actual trip. Meaning, if the trip is a week, I bet you in total I do 2 to 2.5 days of trip planning, and that means like literally 8 hours a day for those 2.5 days or whatever. Now, this gets spread out, of course, because usually we start together by watching some YouTube videos, then we try to figure out what we want to do, and then I get down to the business of the itinerary and really planning out exactly what we're going to do each day and how we're going to get there and how much time we're going to spend. I'll literally just draw that out to the T. Now, we can be flexible while we're there, but I at least need to have a plan. I don't want to be wandering around aimlessly with a family of 6. So I'm really, really detailed about that, and I use Google Maps a ton to figure out how long it takes to get places, to figure out where things are in relation to each other. So I do a lot of planning the itinerary. And then we'll kind of figure out where to stay and all that. Cheryl, a lot of times, will do the booking of the hotels.
Yeah, I usually spend quite a bit of time finding lodging. We have a family of 6, so that's complicated. And then children, so I always try to find a place with a breakfast because they love that, and a pool if I can. And then I also pack us all up, plan all of our food, because we are frugal travelers. Taking a family of 6 out to dinner or every meal is pretty expensive. So I try to have a lot of picnic supplies ready and things we can make in a microwave or in our trailer if we're taking our trailer.
Yep.
And then I pack us all up.
Yep.
So
now, when we were younger, we used to wing it a lot, right? When it was just us, we would just wing it. But now that we're older, we realize the value of our time. We have kids. It gets expensive to wing it a lot of times. So now we're pretty big planners. We really spend a lot of time on that part of it.
But one little tip I was going to mention is, as we've thought about this, is my parents have taken us on, we call them Brown Family Extravaganzas every 2 years, and they've taken us to some really cool places, including South Carolina. And
we're talking like 12 kids, 8 adults, 20 people.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And we all stay in one place.
Yes. And we do these really fun things while we're there. But when we got back, I asked the kids, I'm like, what was the best thing about that vacation? And my son said, we got to have sausage every morning. And it kind of put things in perspective in that sometimes for the people you're traveling with, it isn't about the big activity. It's about something small that's pretty important to them. And so I guess my little tip is Think about the crew you're traveling with and what really will make the trip special for them.
Yelena asks, how long on average does it take to edit a video? And I would say a 10 to 15 minute video, which is kind of a standard YouTube video, probably takes maybe 4 to 5 hours to edit. And I'm a fairly quick editor, so for a lot of people that's taking a lot longer. But you try to cut out a lot of the ums and ahs and the spaces and stuff like that to save view time as you're viewing the video. And then, you add some images and some video and stuff like that. Travel videos are difficult in their own way. They're actually a lot more difficult than a lot of other YouTube channels in some ways. And so that can be quite a challenge. But editing takes a long time. It's a long process if you want to get it looking halfway decent. So I did one video that was an hour long. It was a little more into it, a little more involved. I scripted it out and read everything because I really wanted it to be a production.
It was a special tribute to Yellowstone's 150th birthday.
It was a 1 hour video that took me 40 hours to create. So that was quite a process. Okay, and then also I'm training my son to help me edit right now, so that's kind of fun. What places are on our bucket list, she says. Maybe we'll cover that a little bit later because we'll talk about our future plans and where we're going a little bit later.
M2 says, have you ever had a scary wildlife encounter? Yes, I've had 2, but one of them you're probably not interested in. I got attacked by seagulls at La Jolla Beach. That was probably my most terrifying. They really wanted my sandwich. But I did have a bear story that was kind of scary. When I was a child, I was hiking with my family in Glacier National Park. And it was a pretty remote area. We were by a lake. And all of a sudden, a mama bear and her 2 cubs just crossed the trail right in front of us. And at the time, I thought, that's awesome. But now that I'm a mother, I think that's horrifying because we didn't have bear spray. Like, it could have gone really bad. Luckily, it didn't.
I haven't had any in the wild, but I did last year as I was driving around the mountains near our home here. I saw that somebody had some bison in a pen in their yard, in their ranch. And I just stopped to look at them. And
that makes us sound so Utah. So bison in a pen. Yeah, that's true. We live in Utah.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of funny. I thought, hey, I got to see this bison herd here. One of them charged me. And now there was a fence in between us, but still, I was standing right by the fence, and it took me a minute to figure out that this guy was charging me, and then right down the barrel coming at me. And that was a whole different level. That was like, wow, I've never seen a bison get aggressive. Personally, and I've seen a lot of bison, but I've never seen one get aggressive. Charging right at me, that was kind of an experience. So I've mentioned that on our channel a couple times, but fortunately, no real scary wildlife encounters for me.
All right.
Fingers
Hello
crossed.
Kitty says, do you stick to a budget when you travel?
The short answer is no. But the long answer is that we're both pretty frugal people. And so when we first got married, we had no money. And yet we still managed to travel. I don't know how we did it. We would just not eat half the time. We would sleep in our cars sometimes. We would do camping, which was real cheap. And
we're lucky that the national parks aren't difficult for us to get to because of where we live. Like, yes. Zion is a 5-hour drive. Bryce is a 4-hour drive. I mean, we can...
Well, the national parks are cheap and camping is cheap. So that's pretty much what we've done, that's how we get by. So we were already quite naturally frugal. Like, we don't eating out is not a big deal to us. We really don't care that much about it. We just do picnics.
And we don't have a lot of stuff like boats and 4-wheelers. We don't have that kind of stuff. We
don't have any car. We've never had any car payments. We buy used cars. We have never had cable TV. For the longest time, didn't have cell phones. I mean, for a long time, did not have cell phones. Just try to keep our costs down so that we can spend our money on travel, which is the thing we really, really love.
Yep. But if we do have an expensive trip coming up, like if we're going to go to Disneyland or like we just went to Europe, those were things that we had to plan for. So I would figure out how much the trip would cost, and then I'd divide it up by month and just put aside that amount of money until we had enough to go. So we do budget a little bit, but yeah, our big thing is just we know that we like to spend our money on travel, so we try not to lock our money up on other expenses.
That's right. And then Cheryl mentioned that we do, now that we're a little older, a little more established and all that, we do try to spend money on a few things to make the kids happy. And then also, now that we're travel YouTubers, we actually it's a write-off. Travel's a write-off for us, so that makes it a little more affordable. So sometimes we'll do things like rent a slingshot in the Black Hills. We've started to splurge just a little bit on some of those things, in large part so that we can have an opinion on it. We can tell you whether that's a good idea or not, whether that's part of the experience or not. And or with it being a write-off, it's a little bit more affordable to do it. So
A little more doable.
yeah.
Okay, next one. Deborah, 1958 says, do you have a favorite national park? And my favorite the first thing to know is that whenever we're at any national park, that park is our favorite. They never get old. No matter how many times you've been to them, they still always take your breath away. I just can't believe they have that effect. That you can go to a park 40 times and just be like, wow, this is incredible. But I have to say one of my favorite parks, because I went on so many adventures there as a teen and a young adult, is Zion. I have always loved hiking that park. I love exploring places on my feet because I'm a hiker. And so Zion has a special place in my heart. I love that place.
And I would have to say Yellowstone, mostly because my parents took me there all the time growing up, and now that I appreciated it when I was younger, but that kind of became that, that's part of our memories and my childhood and all that stuff. But also, it's so varied. Yellowstone is hard to even explain what it is sometimes. It's wildlife, it's canyons, it's mountains, it's geysers, it's all that. Like my dad says, it's like 15 national parks in one. And so that's pretty special. I do remember I was at Rocky Mountain National Park one time, all on my own because my family was home. I was there on a job assignment, and I said, I'm not going to sit around this weekend. And so I rented a car, and I drove up to Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. And while I was there eating lunch, a guy from South Africa sat at my table and started talking to me, and he said, I've been to national parks all over the world, in Asia, Africa, the United States, Europe, all that stuff. He said, my very favorite park is Yellowstone National Park. It's just got so much going for it. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And this is a good 10 years ago. This is well before I decided to do anything like this. So Yellowstone, I think, is my favorite. Although Bryce Canyon, a close second, I would say. Love Bryce Canyon. Jesus Alvarez asks, will you guys visit Rocky Mountain National Park and do a video on it? And certainly we will. Colorado is obviously, when you think of the Rockies, most people think of Colorado. And so we're in the Rockies. We're definitely going to do Colorado. We love Colorado. Been to Colorado many times. Been to Rocky Mountain National Park. Been to Mesa Verde and Black Canyon. I mean, really, really amazing places in Colorado.
Springs. Colorado is beautiful.
So yeah, we're going to go there. Probably next year is when we'll start going there again to cover it on our channel, all that stuff. But we've really been focusing on Utah and Wyoming. But again, got a mission to cover the West, so Colorado is going to be a big part of it.
All right, Simon South says, most underrated and most overrated place or national park. Okay, so I've actually changed my answer.
Okay. I'm interested to hear this.
My overrated is, I don't love going to Jackson, the city.
Jackson, Wyoming.
Yes, Jackson, Wyoming. That's the place with the cool antler arches, which I do enjoy. But normally when we go there, Matt has to bribe me with a Dairy Queen Blizzard to get me to go. And I know people love it. The coolest thing there just got done, Barjay Ranch. That's all done now. Yeah, those like little resorty western towns aren't my favorite. But what I think is the most underrated is the Black Hills. I think people think about Mount Rushmore and they don't think about anything else there is to do there. But there's a whole week worth of stuff to do in the Black Hills, and 5 or 6 national parks and a cool state park. And in fact, I'm going to add one more to underrated, are the state parks in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Utah it's like a giant national park, the whole state. And they can only make so much of it a national park, but Snow Canyon is amazing.
Goblin Valley. Dead Horse Park.
Point, yeah.
Oh, man.
Utah has some great, and Valley of Fire in Nevada. There are some state parks that if they were anywhere else would be national parks. And so I think that those are so underrated. So I say Black Hills area, state parks in Utah, Nevada.
Okay, and I'm going to say overrated is Arches National Park. Not because I don't like it. I love Arches. I just spent 2 days there a couple months ago, again, hiking all around Arches. And I really do Love it. But I'm a little surprised at the level of attention it gets from outsiders more than some of the other places in the West. People wanting to go way out of their way to go to Arches on their big Western road trip. And then kind of ignoring Canyonlands and some of the other places around there and Monument Valley and all that. So that's all. I'm a little surprised that people rate Arches as high as it is. It's not Bryce and it's not Zion. So I'd say that's probably a little overrated. And then underrated, I would go with Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado. So it does get, I think, a fair amount of visitors, maybe 500,000 to 1 million visitors a year, I think. But that place has nature and Native American ruins that are 1,000 years old, that are these cliff dweller ruins that are still these huge.
Interact with them. Climb the ladders, go in them.
Go in the kivas, yeah, climb up and down the ladders. I mean, that place is a really, really cool place and is never seems to be mentioned among like the great national parks. So love Mesa Verde. All right, so Michael Shaman asks, what are places that you plan to go that you haven't been yet? So this year, we're going to Monument Valley for the first time. Can't believe we've never been to Monument Valley, actually. So this is not a national park, but it's like a Navajo National Park on the border of Utah and Arizona. We're going to go there. We have been to Glacier National Park before, but we're going to go spend much more time there this year.
We don't feel like we've done Glacier properly yet, but we've got a good plan. We will be there for an entire week, checking everything out.
Including going over to the Canada side. And then, as I mentioned, in the near future, Colorado. Colorado is where we're going to focus a lot more of our efforts. We've been focusing on getting kind of the Utah Mighty Five, along with Monument Valley and the Grand Canyon. We call this the Grand Loop, or the Grand Tour, basically, including Las Vegas and all that. So that's been one of our focuses, and then we've been focusing on Yellowstone and Teton and the Black Hills and all that. But then we're going to move to Colorado, I think, is our next one.
And maybe someday the California parks, Joshua Tree and Yosemite. We'll see.
And the Northwest parks.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's so many places. I just love going to new places. I mean, our dream vacation, my dream was to go to Europe. We just barely went to Germany and Italy. So now I'm almost like, okay, I have to recalibrate. What's my next big dream, right? But in terms of our business and our channel, Colorado is, we want to do a lot more focusing on Colorado.
Yeah, and that's our last question was, what are our future plans? Well, of course, we need to maintain the guides that we have, keep them current. We want to help you guys plan your trips a little more. As we've talked to people, we've noticed that people come from back east and they'll hit several national parks. As Westerners, we're so lucky that we can go hit Yellowstone in 4 days and then come back home. But if you're going through the expense of flying out here, people will stay 3 or 4 or 6 weeks and hit all of them out here. And so we started doing a consulting service so that we can help people piece those together, because we want to, we think our guides are the very best for those individual parks, but sometimes piecing that whole trip together is hard. And so we like consulting, and we love like connecting with you and meeting you. That's one of our very favorite things. And then your audiobooks. Yeah,
so I do the audio tours for these parks and all that, but they're really kind of more like an audiobook in a way. They're standalone stories. You can listen to them even if you're not at the park. And good stories about presidents like Calvin Coolidge and his involvement in the Black Hills, Warren G. Harding and his dog, and how what that has to do with the Grand Canyon and
Butch Cassidy.
Oh yeah, so just like these are standalone stories. So we're going to start putting these into books that you can just download and either listen to or read at your leisure. And then also some tours. We're putting together some tours to actually give you an in-person tour if you would like. So make sure to, if you're interested in that, we'll be doing Yellowstone, of course, and Grand Teton, and just, expanding out from there. So if you're interested in that or any of these other things, make sure to go to our website, we'reintherockies.com, sign up for the email list, the email newsletter, so that you can stay in touch with what we're doing, because we're always sending out announcements and things like that.
Thank you for staying with us. If you have any suggestions of things you'd like us to do, cover, or questions that you wanted answered that we didn't answer, throw them in the comments. We really do read and respond to all these. And really, thank you so much. Again, this is just a dream come true for us. We have loved our interactions with you, and we love knowing that we're helping people travel to the West and see a place that we love so much.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.